Right now, you are doing something no other creature on this planet can do quite like you. You are processing symbols, stringing them into meaning, turning invisible thoughts into something another mind can receive and understand. You call it reading, but the deeper truth is stranger than that. What you are doing right now is the result of a biological revolution so improbable, so unlikely, so expensive in evolutionary terms that scientists still argue about how it started at all. You can talk, and for millions of years, nothing that looked like you could. So what changed, and why did it happen to you? The answer begins not with the mouth, but with something far more basic. It begins with survival and a problem your ancestors could not solve alone. Picture the African savanna roughly 2 million years ago. Your ancestor, Homo erectus, is not impressive by modern standards. No weapons sharp enough to take down a lion, no claws, no venom, no shell. The body is fast enough, but not fast enough. Smart enough, but not smart enough yet. And the world is trying very hard to kill it every single hour of every single day. What Homo erectus had was other Homo erectus. Groups, bands, networks of individuals who stayed close to each other and, because of that closeness, stayed alive. But staying in a group creates its own problem. If you want to cooperate with someone, you need to coordinate. You need to signal. You need to share a model of reality with another mind. And the bigger the group, the harder that becomes. Robin Dunbar, a British anthropologist at Oxford University, spent decades studying the relationship between brain size and social group size in primates. What he found reshaped how scientists think about why human brains grew so large. His research showed that the neocortex, the outer layer of the brain most associated with complex thought, scales almost perfectly with average social group size across primate species. The bigger the social network, the bigger the neocortex needed to manage it. For chimpanzees, the average group sits at around 50 individuals. For humans, Dunbar calculated the number at roughly 150. It is a figure now called Dunbar's number, and it represents something important: the approximate limit of relationships a human brain can genuinely track and maintain. Managing 150 relationships is cognitively exhausting, and the bigger the group you need to manage, the more powerful your communication system needs to be. Other primates groom. Physical contact. One-to-one. It builds trust. It reinforces bonds. It signals alliance. But grooming is slow, and it only works between two individuals at a time. If you have 150 relationships to manage, grooming cannot scale. You simply do not have enough hours. Dunbar proposed something radical. Language, he argued, is social grooming at a distance. It is how your ancestors found a way to bond with multiple individuals simultaneously, to share reputation, to warn about threats, to coordinate hunts, to negotiate alliances, all without needing to physically touch every person every day. But the grooming hypothesis only explains why language was useful once it existed. It does not explain the biological machinery that made it possible. For that, you need to look inside the skull. Broca's area. It sits in the left frontal lobe of your brain, and it is one of the most studied regions in all of neuroscience. Paul Broca, a French physician in the 19th century, identified it after observing patients who had lost the ability to produce speech following brain damage in that specific region. Their comprehension was intact. Their desire to communicate was intact. But the words would not come out in order. They knew what they wanted to say. They simply could not say it. Broca's area is associated with the sequencing of complex, ordered motor actions, including the intricate muscular choreography required to produce speech. What makes this remarkable is that Broca's area is not unique to humans. Chimpanzees have a structurally similar region. But in chimps, it does not connect to the vocal apparatus in the same way. The wiring is different. Somewhere in the last 2 million years, the neural circuitry linking the brain's planning regions to the muscles of the tongue, lips, larynx, and diaphragm was rewired, reorganized. The larynx descended lower in the throat, creating a larger resonating chamber capable of producing a far wider range of sounds. This is actually dangerous. The descended larynx makes it much easier for humans to choke on food than any other primate. Your throat is engineered for language at the cost of safety. Evolution made that trade. Around 600,000 years ago, a gene began to appear in the human lineage that does not appear in the same form in any other living primate. Scientists call it FOXP2. It was identified by researchers studying an extended family in London, the KE family, some of whom had a mutated version of the gene and struggled enormously with both speech production and certain aspects of grammar. Geneticist Simon Fisher and his colleagues at Oxford pinpointed FOXP2 as the culprit. Since then, FOXP2 has been found in Neanderthal remains, suggesting that even our closest extinct relatives may have had some capacity for complex vocalization. FOXP2 does not build language. It does not wire grammar into the brain. What it appears to do is help fine-tune the motor control systems, the precise, high-speed muscular coordination that speech demands. A single spoken syllable requires dozens of muscles to fire in fractions of a second in a specific coordinated sequence. Most animals cannot do this. Your body can, and FOXP2 is part of the reason. But biology alone does not produce language. It only produces the hardware. Something else had to turn the hardware on. That something else was pressure. Around 70,000 years ago, the archaeological record does something unusual. After hundreds of thousands of years of remarkably similar stone tools and very limited evidence of symbolic behavior, human artifacts suddenly change. Engraved ochre at Blombos Cave in South Africa, shell beads used as personal ornament, long-distance trade of materials, evidence of complex planning behavior, evidence of what archaeologists call behavioral modernity. Yuval Noah Harari, the historian and author, described this shift as the cognitive revolution, the moment when humans began thinking and communicating in ways that allowed them to do something no other animal had done. Talk about things that do not exist. Gods, laws, nations, money, stories, shared fictions that allowed large numbers of strangers to cooperate toward a common goal. No other animal can be convinced to work toward an imagined future. No chimpanzee will labor today for a reward it will not receive for 6 months, but your ancestors could. Language made abstract time real. It made distant threats discussable. It made cooperation with strangers possible because strangers could now share a story, and a shared story is a shared identity. Think about what that means. Before language, your social world was limited to who you could see and smell and touch. After language, the social world became infinite. You could forge alliances with people you had never met. You could share the knowledge of a dead ancestor through a spoken story passed down across generations. You could plan a hunt for next season in a place you had never visited with someone who was not yet born. Language did not just change how humans communicated, it changed what it was possible to be. There is one more piece of this story that scientists are still working through, and it lives in your body right now. When you speak, you breathe differently. Speech requires breath control that is fundamentally unlike ordinary respiration. You have to slow the exhale, manage airflow, keep enough air in reserve for the next phrase. Primates cannot do this voluntarily. Their breathing is automatic, reflexive, outside conscious control. Yours is not. Researchers Daniel Lieberman and Dennis Bramble, biomechanists at Harvard University, spent years studying the evolution of the human body and how it was shaped by running. Their work suggests that the capacity for endurance running, which humans are extraordinary at compared to most mammals, required the same kind of fine voluntary control over breathing that speech also demands. The two systems, breath control for running and breath control for talking, may have co-evolved, each reinforcing the other. Your body was built for movement, and somewhere along the way, the same muscular precision that let your ancestors run for hours across open ground became the same precision that let them speak across a fire at night. So when you talk, you are using a system built for survival in a world you have never seen. A system that co-evolved with your legs and your lungs and your social needs and your expanding brain. A system so expensive that your throat is literally designed in a way that makes you more likely to choke than any other primate. Evolution paid that price because the return was worth it. Language let small bands become tribes, tribes become cities, Cities become civilizations. Everything you see around you, every piece of technology, every institution, every piece of music and law and story and art exists because at some point in the deep past, a creature not entirely unlike you found a way to take a thought from inside its own skull and place it inside someone else's. Right now, you are doing that. You are taking words assembled by one mind and using them to build something inside your own. The same channel that carried warnings about predators now carries this. The same wiring that once passed knowledge of a hunting route around a fire is what you are using to read these words. The oldest technology in the world is still running in your head, and it has never once stopped working.